Welcome to the United States of America. If you conduct yourself well, you can consider us friends.
So, Mike, I know you've been playing a lot of Civ 6 over the just past few months, but now it turns out that you've got your hands on basically a full version of the game and you've done a complete playthrough, start to finish. First of all, who did you play as, and did you win?
I played as Norway, and yes, I did win through a military victory, which is kind of the most boring in my opinion, but it was still really fun because of the changes Civ 6 made, and it was, I actually, Firaxis kind of pretty much gave us access to the full game, minus, different difficulties. I played on Prince difficulty, which is, default. And we only had 10 of the civilizations out of the 20. So for all intents and purposes, it was the full game, but I got to actually see how Civ 6 works over, more than just 150 turns, yeah.
Gotcha. So how did playing a full playthrough compare to playing just the first 150 turns?
It is very, very different than Civ 5. Something that's plagued Civ games and a lot of turn-based or 4X games since they have become a thing is the mid-game turns can be boring, right? You have your first 150 turns where you're building new cities, you're expanding your civilization, you're trying to figure out what course you want to plot. And then the mid-game turns were usually those ones where you're kind of just hunkering down, getting the right luxury resources, trying to establish trade routes,
right.
Maybe taking a few cities if you're militarily inclined. And then the late game turns are the rush for the different kinds of victories.
Right, yeah. That crescendo right before everything kind of comes to a head at the very end.
Sure, it kind of culminates and you see whose plan worked and whose didn't. In Civ 6, at least from this playthrough, the mid-game turns were actually really fun. I haven't played more than one full playthrough, and I'm really eager to because from what I've seen, Civ 6 is kind of challenging me more than any other Civ has, and it's also making me pivot more. So I set out assuming I would do a victory, a military victory, but then those mid-game turns with the active research, which is kind of like this side quest system that we talked about before that pushes you or pulls you in one way on the science tree regardless of what your plan might be. It kind of, makes you reconsider what you're doing and what direction you're taking. These mid-game turns really actually kind of felt just as suspenseful as the beginning and the end.
Interesting. In part because of the active research, that was the main thing kind of fueling those pivots?
It was a combination of the active research and then the other leaders also. Civ is always kind of in its marketing said, we want the leaders to be personalities. With Rising Tide, the expansion to Beyond Earth, they really tried to push that.
Yeah.
But now leaders have these historical agendas that kind of match up with, as you would assume, history. So you Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly, carry a big stick. He'll threaten you a lot, and he's not afraid to actually start fighting you. And then you have the Vikings, I played, are very naval inclined, and then their one of their bonuses is that you can invade the coastline with any naval unit. You can pillage farms with one less action, and then you can attack people with an extra attack count. And they're not very defensive, but they're very good at expanding. And as you would assume, Vikings back in the day, they're very kind of aggressive. And the other leaders kind of they had these historical agendas, but they also had the hidden agendas, which is what you start trying to figure out as you're going. You have spies in other cities, you have alliances with different leaders that'll say, Teddy Roosevelt is building a lot of spies, so you're okay, so maybe he's kind of going for a cultural victory because he's trying to kidnap or steal my great people. Or this person's building up their military, so you're okay, maybe their hidden agenda is actually to just launch out a full-on assault. So I kind of started the mid-game turns trying to figure out the other leaders, and from this playthrough, it really felt like Firaxis might have nailed that this time, or at least from this playthrough. Maybe I was just imagining things and it was making me paranoid, which is also pretty cool.
It may have been in your head, but yeah, even
Totally,
if that's true, that is still pretty cool.
Sure.
It's interesting to hear that there was such a noticeable mechanical impact, that the different civilizations weren't just flavor this time around. I mean, that has always been kind of an emphasis for them, but I don't know if they've ever really kind of hit that. So I'm happy to hear that was more tangible in your playthrough this time. How did the unstacked cities play in a full playthrough versus the 150 turns? Because that's been a big thing for them, a big change, that cities are now spread out and you really have to pay a little more attention to what you're putting in a particular city and how you lay those cities out. So yeah, over the course of a long, full game, how did that work?
Right, so it's always easy for us to say these unstacked cities make you really think ahead and kind of consider the map in new ways, but it really did. In this playthrough, it made me realize how much I did not think ahead. Because you establish a university district, which is where all your science buildings will be housed. So it's not like older civs where you'll learn a certain technology, you'll be able to build a university in your city tile. Now you actually have to have that the campus tile. So you can have a university, you can have all your astronomy towers and whatnot. If you put those next to mountains, you'll get bonuses. But then if you put an aqueduct next to a river, but also adjacent to a jungle, for instance, you'll get these bonuses. So my cities were unfolding in a way that I wasn't considering just those first 150 turns. So like I was like in turn like 350 or something, and looked back, as like if I had just put this aqueduct up farther up the river, would have gotten the adjacency bonus from this other city that I had. So it really made me also consider how to attack cities and how to defend them. Because like I said, I was a Vikings. I was going for a very like a amphibious assault kind of thing, like using their bonuses along the coast, like near other cities. And then I knew this one city. Like my advisors told me that they're really far ahead of me in technology. I think it was it might have been the Romans. And so I saw they had a campus district. So I'm like, that's the first one I'm going to go for. At least I'm going to, you know, if not pillage it and raise it, I'm going to at least like lay siege to it and try to like halt their science production. So it really made you think about, if you're not just going to go destroy a civilization, if you're militarily inclined, maybe you can just like hobble their main advantage. So that was a really cool way of like, you know, it wasn't just attacking a city tile and you might just destroy the university in the process.
I have heard that knowledge is power. So
exactly. So I was like, all right, I might as well just destroy the Romans' knowledge and then remove their power. So it worked out. It was this unstacked cities and the active research and like the leader agendas all kind of coalesced in the way that made the entire playthrough really engaging. Engaging being kind of a cliched word, but I really was constantly thinking rather than just kind of going through the motions in those mid-game turns.
Gotcha. So based on this playthrough, do you think that other future playthroughs will be different? I mean, is there clearly kind of some variety that could impact how the game plays each time through? Because I know certain players will kind of find their style and just lay into this one particular way of playing the game. Do you think that this is going to challenge those types of players? Do you think people are going to be kind of forced to employ different strategies and play the game in different ways?
I think so, yeah. Like, this is the first time I've played past like 150 turns, and from what I've played, it kind of made it, like, idealistically it will, because you know, the active research pulled me in a few different directions that I didn't plan. I was going like, you know, bronze working, like steel, and then like trying to get my navy, like battleships going, because like the Vikings again are very like a naval civilization. And the entire time I would, you know, build a quarry, and then that would unlock masonry for me, and I'd be like, oh, I didn't even plan that, but now I kind of want to go down that part of the tree, but I also just want to keep going down, like building my army up and then giving them better supplies, better equipment. But then something else would unlock, and I would get a new luxury resource near my city, be like, shit, that would really help me if I wanted to build like a market and like really establish an economy. But then I would have to, it kept like making me rethink everything. And I probably could have won faster if I did go down like another route. I was actually kind of hard-headed, but it challenged me in my plan much more than other civs have. So I want to play another playthrough. I almost want to play with the Vikings again to see how different it unfolds based on the map and where I put my city tiles and what the active research does to pull me in one way or the other.
Any other big takeaways from this first full playthrough?
It's promising. I'm like, being a huge Civ fan, I've probably put like 500 something hours into 5 since it released. And you know, it's a team that made the expansions for 5 that are making their it's the first time they're as a team making their first full game. So I'm really excited to see what kind of like things they've done to tweak the Civ formula in minor ways. There's a ton of minor additions they've done that like aren't just like unstacking cities or active research or, you know, like the hidden agendas. It really just feels like it might be something fresh that the franchise needs. I guess we'll find out when it releases, obviously, but as of now, I'm really excited.
Cool. Well, I know that we have a little bit more Civ coverage planned before the game is out, but until then, just stay tuned to GameSpot.com for everything Civ and everything video games.